What I'm going to talk about today is how to create a waistband and a facing or finish for your skirt. So you want either one, either a waistband or a facing. So the first is to show you a straight waistband. To create a straight waistband, you need your calculator up, and you need to be able to measure both your front and your back. Important thing is that the outside line here, the solid line, should be on the inside. So we want to take all of our pieces and say switch all to sew, so that again the solid line is on the inside. Now I'm going to take the tape measure and I'm going to select the piece in a clockwise fashion up at the waistline, and it's going to give me a couple of different measurements. It gives me segment and it gives me D, and I want segment. What segment is it is the length of the line that I just measured with the darts closed. So you're creating a waistband, and if you're thinking about sewing it, you will have sewn the darts shut, and then after you sew them shut, you're going to attach your waistband. So I want to use segment. So I'm going to go to my calculator here, and I'm going to type in the amount for segment. Now I want to add my back, and so I'm going to measure the back again in clockwise fashion. Segment is giving me 6.551, and so I'm going to add 6.551, and I'm going to add it again because we have two backs, and so I'm going to get 26.186. Now if you're referring to the textbook then says that a waistband should be a ½ inch smaller than the measurement of your waist. So I'm going to subtract 0.5, and I'm going to get 25.686. So again, that was my waist measurement by subtract a ½ inch. Then the author goes on to talk about the overlap, and so with an overlap we are talking about a button and a buttonhole to go in the back of your waist. So if you're thinking about a design where the zipper is going straight up through the waistband, you are not going to create a overlap. But I'm going to show you how you do this with an overlap. So I'm going to go ahead and add 1 inch for that overlap. So I'm going to get 26.686. So now I'm ready to go. And I'm going to select my rectangle tool, because basically a waistband is a rectangle. I'm going to call it a waistband. And my X direction, or lengthwise direction, should be double the width of the waistband. So the book has 2.5, but right now waistbands are a little bit narrower, so I'm going to select 2. And then I just want to double check to make sure that I have my amounts right. I don't, and so I want to put 26.686 and put 26.686 right here for my Y, and then here I have my band. So the next step that I want to do with the band is that I want to add notches. So I'm going to come up here to a new tool. Hotkey is N, and I can select N. The first notch that I want is where the overlap is, and so I'm going to select one of my long line segments. Click on the line, and it says from previous point. So again, it's thinking clockwise. I want it to be 1 inch, and I just want to double check that it's the right type of a notch. For woven fabrics, it should be a knit. For knit fabrics, it should be a castle. And so we are going to use the slip notch. 0.25 is fine for the depth. And then I want to put on grading point, because I want to add a grading point to where my notch actually is. Go ahead and click on OK. Then the book has to place a notch at the center back seam. And so I want to click anywhere towards the center. And if you remember from math, and proportional is referring to a proportion or distance from an edge, in this case, distance from the grade point. And if I put 0.5, that's a halfway point. So it's halfway between this grade point or notch and this point, which will be my side seam. And I go ahead and I click on grading point and click on OK. I'm going to do the same as per the instructions in the book, and again put 0.5 at a grading point and 0.5 and add a grading point. Now keep in mind, many companies do not like the use of excessive notches, and so they may say that a waistband should be put on without any notches at all, so just keep that in mind. The last thing is that I want to add my seam allowance, so I go ahead and I select my sewing machine, I select one of those points there, and I go ahead and I select 0.5 for all the way around. Again, a company may prefer to trim and have a portion of the waistband, if not all of the waistband, be 1/4 of an inch. So that can be a company rule, and that would be noted in the pattern card instructions. So that's it for your waistband. Just make sure that you check your labeling. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move that piece off to the edge. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And now I'm going to show you how to do a facing. So again, you would have a waistband or you would have facing. You wouldn't have both to finish your skirt. So to create a facing, I first want to place my pattern piece on the half. So I only want to see half, and that in order to create it. And then I'm going to use a new tool here. I'm going to select my waistband. I don't have to measure, just select a waistband. And then I'm going to select the Create Parallel tool. So Create Parallel. And it asks for the distance. So a typical distance for a facing is 2 to 2.5 inches. So 2, 2 1/4, 2.5 inches. And so I'm just going to go ahead and make mine to be 2 1/4. The book has 2.5. Again, it can vary. And I do want extend first point and extend last point. That's just going to basically stretch the curve line to fit. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. So you see that that line went all the way to the edge. And go ahead and click yes. Okay. Good idea to kind of get rid of extra little grade points that it may have created, and to not confuse your next step, which is going to be removing, closing and kind of removing some of the darts there. So I'm just going to kind of get rid of a few points to sort of clean it up like I had an eraser. Okay, so now I have my facing shape. Then the book talks about tracing off this piece. And so we're going to actually do the same thing in our CAD program. I'm going to zoom up here so that you can see closer. And I'm going to use the Trace Segments tool, or Control I as the hotkey. And I'm going to select in a clockwise fashion. And select my lines here. Make sure that you select in between grade points. And select my front line, and then I've got my piece. I use the select tool, and I have selected and traced my piece. Once I've traced it, I now can get rid of this draft line. I don't need that and don't want that in my final skirt piece. Just needed it to create my facing. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the dart. So I've selected the dart, And now if you're taking a look at the book instructions, it says to close the dart. And in manual pattern making, you would slit along this line and then you would match the other leg. So I'm going to essentially be doing that. I'm just going to be clicking on close dart. So now I basically slit and taped it in place. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this dart image. So I've gotten rid of the dart image, and then I can smooth it out by again deleting some points or making points curve points and non-grade points, making sure that it's nice and smooth. It looks like it's dipping down a little bit, so I think I will first try by just getting rid of this point. See if it kind of smooths out my shaping. Yes, it does. So facing should be fairly even there. So there's my front piece almost. Then a facing grain line should be matching the center front, and so it should be parallel to the center front. So I'm going to select the center front here, and I'm going to say grain line parallel to segment and rotate to grain line. So now it has straightened up my piece and it is ready to be opened. I've already selected my center front, and so by selecting my center front, I then can say select half and then view half. And it looks like it's dipping up just a little bit, so I'm just going to kind of just kind of trim things just a little bit and kind of get a little bit better shaping there. And so again, just kind of shaping it so that it's a little smooth. The last step is to add a seam allowance to the bottom edge, and depending upon how you're going to finish this, whether you're going to sew it to lining or whether it's just going to be a finish, dictates the width of my seam allowance. So if I was just going to leave this and I'm not going to have a lining attached to it, then I'm going to select my piece, bottom edge, clockwise. I'm going to select the sewing machine tool. And I'm going to make that 1/4 of an inch. Again, some companies may cheat a little bit and they may just do a raw edge without the seam allowance, saving a little bit of fabric. There you go with the front, and you would do the same to the back.